The security guard's hand was inches from her shoulder when the emergency alarm screamed to life. Madeline Reeves didn't flinch. She'd heard worse sounds, the kind that came with helicopter blades and distant artillery fire, the kind most people in this pristine Colorado hospital would never understand. They wanted her gone. Badge revoked, contract terminated, a problem to be escorted out by morning. But in 60 seconds, this place was about to become a war zone. And the administrator who just fired her? He was about to realize he'd made the worst mistake of his career. Because the quiet nurse sitting outside the trauma wing wasn't who anyone thought she was. Before we dive in, I want to invite you to stay with me until the very end of this story. If you enjoy it, please hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel across the world. The fluorescent lights in Ridgeline General Hospital's East Corridor hummed with that particular frequency that made your teeth ache if you listened too long. Madeline Reeves sat in one of those uncomfortable plastic chairs bolted to the wall, hands folded in her lap, eyes forward. Her scrubs were standard issue blue, nothing special. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No jewelry, no makeup, nothing that would make her stand out in a crowd of medical staff. Except she wasn't supposed to be there anymore. Miss Reeves, the voice came from behind her, sharp and administrative. Your access was revoked at 0700 this morning. Madeline didn't turn around. She knew who it was. Marcus Delacroix, the hospital's chief administrative officer, had a voice that carried the particular blend of authority and impatience that came from too many years pushing paper and not enough time understanding what actually happened in the rooms beyond his office. I'm aware, she said quietly. Then you understand you're trespassing. Now she did turn slowly. Marcus stood there in his tailored suit, tablet in hand, looking at her the way you'd look at a parking violation. Behind him, two other administrators hovered, Sharon Eng from HR and David Coslow from Legal, the termination committee. I was told my contract ended this morning, Madeline said. I wasn't told I had to leave the building immediately. Marcus's jaw tightened. Your badge doesn't work. You have no clearance. This area is restricted to authorized trauma personnel only. I know what this area is. Then you also know you're no longer authorized to be here. A nurse passing by slowed down, pretending to check something on her phone while she listened. Madeline recognized her. Ashley Park, one of the newer hires who'd started 3 months ago. Ashley had made it clear from day one that she thought Madeline was too quiet, too strange, too disconnected from the rest of the staff. Sharon Eng stepped forward, her voice taking on that HR tone of manufactured sympathy. Madeline, we understand this is difficult. Contract positions don't always work out, but we need you to gather your things and exit the premises. I don't have any things here. Then there's nothing keeping you. Madeline looked at them, really looked at them. Marcus with his expensive watch and his performance metrics. Sharon with her carefully practiced expressions. David with his legal pad, ready to document anything that might become a liability. None of them had ever asked her why she worked the overnight shifts, why she never joined the staff parties, why she volunteered for every difficult case and never complained about the hours. They didn't care about answers, they cared about clean paperwork. I'm staying, Madeline said. Marcus's expression shifted from annoyance to something harder. Excuse me? You heard me. Miss Reeves, I'm not asking, I'm telling you to leave. And I'm telling you that in about 15 minutes, you're going to need every qualified person in this building. So I'm staying. Ashley Park stopped pretending to look at her phone. She turned fully now, eyebrows raised. Did she just refuse to leave? Sharon exchanged a glance with David, who was already typing something on his legal pad. Marcus took a step closer, lowering his voice to what he probably thought was a threatening tone. Security is 3 floors down, he said. I can have them here in 90 seconds. Is that how you want this to go? Madeline met his eyes. There was something in her gaze that made Marcus hesitate, just for a fraction of a second. Something that didn't belong in a hospital corridor. Something that looked like it had seen things these fluorescent lights could never illuminate. Call them, she said simply. Marcus pulled out his phone. That's when the first alarm went off. Not the regular code alerts that happened a dozen times a day. This was different. This was the sound that meant everything was about to change. The emergency broadcast system that triggered when the hospital went into mass casualty protocol. Marcus's finger froze over his phone screen. The overhead speakers crackled. Attention all personnel. Mass casualty incident inbound. Multiple trauma victims. ETA 4 minutes. All available trauma staff report to emergency receiving. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Ashley's face went pale. Sharon took a step backward. David's legal pad suddenly seemed very unimportant. Marcus stood there, his authority evaporating in real time. What happened? The speakers crackled again. Federal transport vehicle collision on Highway 34. Multiple agencies responding. Estimate 12 to 15 casualties. Unknown number critical. Down the corridor, nurses and doctors were already running toward the emergency department. Phones were ringing, pages were going out. The hospital was transforming from a place of controlled routine into something else entirely. Madeline stood up. "You should move," she said to Marcus. "I need to coordinate. You need to get out of the way." She walked past him, past Sharon and David and Ashley, moving with a purpose that made people instinctively step aside. Not fast, not panicked, just steady, certain. Ashley called after her. "You don't even work here anymore." Madeline kept walking. The emergency department was already chaos. Nurses scrambled to prepare trauma bays. Physicians barked orders into phones. Medical students looked terrified. The air smelled like adrenaline and anxiety, and that particular kind of institutional fear that came when people realized they might not be ready for what was coming. Dr. Richard Santos, the senior trauma physician, was trying to organize triage teams. He was good. Madeline had worked with him before, but he was also exhausted. 16-hour shift, no backup, and now this. "I need 3 teams," Richard shouted. "Level 1 traumas go to bays 1 through 3. Level 2 to 4 and 5. Everyone else stages in 6. Where's respiratory? 2 minutes out. That's not good enough. We need them now." Madeline scanned the room, counted personnel, calculated resources. She'd done this before, in places where there were no trauma bays or respiratory therapists or backup teams. Just sand and blood and screaming. She pushed the memory down. A young resident, couldn't have been more than 26, stood frozen near the supply cabinet, staring at the controlled chaos like he'd just realized medical school hadn't prepared him for this. Madeline walked up to him. "What's your name?" He blinked. "What?" "Your name. Fast." David? David Chen? No, wait, David Morrison." "You know how to run a transfusion protocol, David Morrison?" I've done it in simulation. That'll have to work. Bay 3. Go." He went. Richard spotted her. "Madeline, what are you doing here? I thought you were... Where do you need me?" He didn't have time to question it. "Bay 1, we're getting at least 3 criticals." She moved before he finished the sentence. "Bay 1 was supposed to be ready." It wasn't. The ventilator wasn't set up properly. The crash cart was in the wrong position. Someone had forgotten to check the suction, all the little things that didn't matter until they mattered more than anything else in the world. Madeline fixed them. 30 seconds. Muscle memory. Behind her, she heard Marcus's voice. He'd followed her into the ED, still trying to assert some kind of control. "Someone explain to me what's happening." Nobody had time to explain anything to him. The ambulance bay doors exploded open. The first stretcher came through at a dead run. Paramedics on both sides, one doing chest compressions, another bagging the patient. Blood everywhere. Male, approximately 40, massive internal trauma, lost vitals twice en route. Richard took charge. "Bay 1, move." They transferred the patient. Madeline was already there, hands moving before anyone gave orders. IV access, monitor leads, pressure checks. The patient's chest wasn't moving right. Flail segment, probable hemothorax. "I need a chest tube kit," Madeline said. Not loud, not panicked, just clear. A nurse she didn't recognize hesitated. I don't know if we have..." "Top cabinet, left side, blue packaging. Go." The nurse went. Richard was listening to breath sounds, his face grim. "She's right. Massive hemothorax. We need to decompress now or we lose him." 2 more stretchers burst through the doors. Then 3 more. The trickle became a flood. Marcus was still standing there, tablet in hand, looking like a man who'd just realized his organizational charts meant nothing. Sharon Eng appeared next to him. "Should we evacuate non-essential personnel?" I don't know. Is that protocol?" Ashley Park rushed past, carrying bags of IV fluid, looking more scared than Madeline had ever seen her. In Bay 1, the patient crashed again. No pulse. Start compressions. Richard moved to take over, but Madeline was already there, hands positioned, rhythm perfect. She'd done this in the back of moving vehicles while rockets fell. This was almost easy. 30 compressions. Breathe. 30 compressions. Breathe. Rhythm check. The monitor showed a shockable pattern. Clear. The defibrillator discharged. The patient's body jerked. The monitor jumped. We got him back. But barely. The man was still circling the drain. Madeline looked at Richard. We need to open him up. Here? We're not equipped. He won't make it to the OR. You know it. Richard knew it. His face said he knew it. But knowing something and doing something were different things. Another stretcher crashed through the doors. This one was worse. A woman, maybe 30, with injuries that made even the experienced paramedics look shaken. Female, critical, multiple GSWs. Everyone stopped. Gunshot wounds. Wait, Marcus said, his voice rising with panic. This was a vehicle collision. Why are there gunshot victims? Nobody answered him because nobody knew. But Madeline did. She recognized the pattern, the way the casualties were coming in, the types of injuries, the way the paramedics moved with just a little too much alertness, eyes scanning the room like they were expecting trouble. This wasn't an accident. This was something else. She kept her face neutral, kept working, but part of her mind was already 3 steps ahead, calculating scenarios, assessing threats, preparing for what might come next. Another alarm. Attention all personnel. External security protocol activated. Non-essential exits are being secured. Remain at your stations. Marcus grabbed a passing nurse. What does that mean? Why are they locking down the exits? The nurse shook her head. I don't know. But Madeline knew. Someone was coming. In Bay 2, a physician was losing control. Too many patients. Too much blood. His hands were shaking. I can't. There's too many. A patient was deteriorating. Oxygen saturation dropping. Blood pressure crashing. Madeline looked at Richard. Bay 2 needs help. I can't leave this one. I've got this one. Go. He hesitated. She was technically not even staff anymore. But the patient in Bay 1 was stabilizing, and the patient in Bay 2 was dying. Richard went. Madeline took over. The man's vitals were precarious but holding. She adjusted the ventilator settings, checked the chest tube output, recalculated the fluid resuscitation. Her hands moved with the kind of certainty that only came from doing this hundreds of times in situations far worse than this. Ashley Park appeared next to her holding a chart, looking like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Finally, how are you doing that? Doing what? Not freaking out. Madeline didn't look up from the monitor. Freaking out doesn't help. But you don't even work here. Right now, I'm the only thing keeping this person alive. So whether I work here or not doesn't really matter, does it? Ashley's face flushed. She started to respond, but another patient rolled in, and she had to move. The chaos continued. More victims. More emergencies. The hospital was straining under the weight of something it wasn't designed to handle. Marcus stood in the center of the ED, surrounded by motion he couldn't control, watching his carefully managed institution come apart at the seams. Then the ambulance bay doors opened one more time, but no stretcher came through. Instead, 4 men in tactical gear entered. Not police, not paramedics. Something else. They wore black fatigues with minimal insignia, moved with military precision, and had the kind of situational awareness that made it clear they were professionals. The lead man scanned the room with cold efficiency. Everyone noticed. Everyone stopped what they were doing for just a second. Marcus found his voice. Who are you? This is a restricted... The man held up credentials, federal. We're here about the transport incident. Are more victims coming? That's classified. This is a hospital. You can't just... The man wasn't listening to Marcus anymore. He was scanning the room, looking at faces, searching for something. His eyes found Madeline. He stopped. Everything in his posture changed. Recognition, surprise, something close to respect. He crossed the room, his 3 team members following, moving around stretchers and medical personnel with practiced ease. Marcus tried to intercept him. "Sir, I need to know." The man walked past him like he wasn't there. He stopped in front of Madeline. She looked up from her patient, met his eyes, showed nothing. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then the man did something that made the entire emergency department go silent. He came to attention. "Lieutenant Reeves," he said, "didn't expect to find you here." The heart monitor beeped steadily in the sudden quiet. Ashley Park's chart slipped from her hands and clattered to the floor. Marcus's face went through several expressions at once: confusion, shock, dawning realization. Richard Santos stared. Madeline's expression didn't change. "Captain Ortiz? Last I heard, you were in civilian practice, private sector." "I am." "This doesn't look very private." "It wasn't supposed to." Ortiz glanced at the patient Madeline was working on, noted the chest tube, the ventilator settings, the careful management of a critically unstable case. His jaw tightened with something that might have been approval. "How many critical?" 7, 3 stabilized, 4 touch and go. "Casualties from the transport?" "Some, not all." Ortiz processed that. "You think this was coordinated?" "I think the injury patterns don't match the official story." He nodded slowly. Behind him, his team was quietly assessing the room, making calculations, preparing for scenarios nobody else was thinking about yet. Marcus finally found his voice again. "Lieutenant, she's a contract nurse. She doesn't have any—" Ortiz turned to look at him. It wasn't a friendly look. "Who are you?" "I'm the chief administrative officer of this hospital, and I need to know—" "Then you need to know that Lieutenant Reeves has more trauma experience than everyone in this room combined." His voice carried across the ED, clear and factual. "She ran field casualty operations in 3 combat zones, maintained surgical teams under active fire, kept soldiers alive in conditions that would break most of your staff." The room had gone completely silent now. "She also," Ortiz continued, his tone hardening, "has security clearance that would make your hospital credentials look like library cards. So when I ask her for a situation assessment, I suggest you let her give it." Marcus's face had gone pale. Sharon Eng stood frozen near the supply cabinet. David Coslow had stopped typing on his legal pad entirely. Ashley Park was staring at Madeline like she'd never seen her before. Madeline finished adjusting her patient's IV drip, checked the monitor one more time, and only then looked back at Ortiz. "You're not here about the transport," she said quietly. "No." "What's actually happening?" Ortiz glanced at his team, made a decision. The transport was carrying a federal witness, high-value asset. The collision wasn't an accident. Attack? Extraction attempt. We lost him in the chaos. Madeline's eyes narrowed. "You think he's here?" "We think one of your incoming casualties is not who they appear to be." The implications settled over the room like ice water. Someone in this hospital was a target, or a threat, or both. Richard Santos stepped forward. "If there's an active danger to my patients, we're handling it," Ortiz said. "But we need to know who came in. Full casualty list, now." Marcus fumbled with his tablet. His hands were shaking. "I don't have access to—" "I do," Madeline said. She moved to the nearest computer terminal, logged in with credentials that should have been deactivated but apparently weren't, and pulled up the intake records. 12 patients. She scanned the list, cross-referencing injuries with arrival times, looking for patterns that didn't fit. Her finger stopped on one name. "Bay 6, she said. John Doe. Moderate injuries. Stable. Transferred from the initial triage staging." Ortiz moved immediately. "Lock down that bay. Nobody in or out." 2 of his team members headed for Bay 6 at a tactical run, but they were 3 seconds too late. The explosion wasn't large. It didn't have to be. Just enough to blow out the windows in Bay 6 and send a percussion wave through the adjacent hallways. Alarms shrieked, people screamed, smoke billowed into the corridor. Ortiz was already running. "Active threat. Secure all exits." Madeline grabbed the crash cart, positioned it between the explosion site and the most vulnerable patients, her body moving on pure instinct from years of training most people would never understand. Through the smoke, a figure emerged from Bay 6. Not running. Walking. Calm. Purposeful. He was wearing a patient gown, But there was nothing injured about the way he moved. In his hand was something small and metallic. Ortiz saw it. "Gun! Everyone down!" But before anyone could move, before anyone could react, the man's eyes locked onto something across the room. Not the federal agents, not the hospital staff. He was looking at one of the patients, a woman on a stretcher near Bay 4, unconscious, vulnerable. Madeline recognized the look. She'd seen it before, in places where mercy was a liability and hesitation meant death. The man was going to finish what the explosion couldn't. Everyone else was still processing the threat, still trying to understand what was happening. Madeline was already moving. She crossed the distance in 4 strides, grabbed a metal instrument tray from the nearest table, and threw it with the kind of precision that only came from muscle memory she'd tried very hard to forget. The tray hit the gunman's wrist. The weapon clattered to the floor. He turned toward her, surprise flashing across his face, then recognition. "You," he said. And Madeline realized with cold clarity that this wasn't random. He knew who she was. The words hung in the smoke-filled air like a death sentence. Madeline's mind raced through possibilities in the half-second before the man lunged. He moved fast, trained, efficient, but she'd seen faster, in dustier places, under hotter suns. She sidestepped, using his momentum against him, and drove her elbow into his solar plexus. He grunted, stumbled back into the wall. Ortiz was already there, weapon drawn, his team converging from 3 angles. "On the ground! Now!" The man smiled, actually smiled, blood on his teeth from where he'd bitten his tongue in the fall. "Too late," he said. Then the lights went out. Not just in the emergency department, the entire hospital, every floor, every wing. The backup generators kicked in after 3 seconds, 3 seconds that felt like 3 hours. But by then, the damage was done. In the darkness, something had changed. When the emergency lighting flickered on, casting everything in that sickly red glow, the man was gone, vanished into the chaos like smoke. "Secure the exits," Ortiz shouted, but his voice was fighting against alarms and screaming and the sound of equipment failing all around them. Madeline's eyes went immediately to the patients. The ventilators had switched to battery backup, but some of the older monitors were rebooting. Bay 1, her critical patient. She ran. The man she'd stabilized was crashing, his oxygen saturation dropping fast. The ventilator was running, but something was wrong. She checked the tubing, kinked. Someone had stepped on it in the panic. She fixed it in 2 seconds, watched his numbers climb back up, and only then allowed herself to breathe. Ashley Park was frozen near the supply cabinet, her face pale in the red light. "Move," Madeline told her. "Check your patients." I can't." "You can. Go." Ashley went, stumbling a little, but she went. Marcus appeared out of the shadows, his expensive suit rumpled, his tablet dead in his hands. "What's happening? Why did we lose power?" "Someone cut it," Madeline said, not looking up from her patient. "That's impossible. We have redundancies." Then they cut the redundancies. Richard Santos was shouting orders across the department, trying to maintain some kind of order, but it was slipping. 2 nurses were arguing about medication protocols. A resident was hyperventilating near Bay 3. The carefully constructed hierarchy of a modern hospital was collapsing under pressure it was never designed to withstand. Ortiz regrouped with his team near the ambulance bay entrance. Madeline caught fragments of their conversation. East stairwell. Thermal shows movement on 3. "Can't get a clean lock." She finished with her patient and moved to where Ortiz stood, his jaw tight with frustration. "He knew me," she said quietly. Ortiz looked at her. "You sure?" "Positive." "From where?" "I don't know, but he wasn't surprised to see me. He was expecting me." That changed things. Ortiz's expression hardened. "This wasn't just about the witness. They knew you were here." "That's not possible. I've been dark for 3 years, civilian work, no contacts with..." "Apparently not dark enough." A crash from somewhere down the corridor, breaking glass, shouting. One of Ortiz's team members, a woman with cold eyes and a scar across her jaw, spoke into her radio. "Movement confirmed, 4th floor, heading toward the pediatric wing." Pediatric wing. Children. Madeline felt something cold settle in her chest. "He's drawing you away from the actual target." "Which is?" Still here, in this department. Ortiz processed that, made a decision. Thompson, Reed, take the 4th floor. Keep your channels open. Martinez, you're with me. He looked at Madeline. You need to get out of here. No. Lieutenant, this is an active federal operation, and this is a hospital full of people who will die if someone doesn't keep them alive. You do your job, I'll do mine. They stared at each other for a moment. Ortiz broke first. Fine, but stay away from the tactical areas. Obviously, he moved toward the stairwell with Martinez, weapon ready, moving with the kind of controlled aggression that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. Madeline turned back to the emergency department. Marcus was trying to use a landline phone near the nurses' station. His hands were shaking. I need to speak to the police commissioner. This is Marcus Delacroix, Chief Administrative Officer of Ridgeline General. What do you mean the lines are down? He slammed the phone down, turned, and nearly collided with Madeline. You, he said, and there was something new in his voice, something that wasn't quite anger but close to it. You brought this here. Excuse me? That man knew you. That federal agent called you lieutenant. This isn't a coincidence. Around them, nurses were struggling to maintain care with limited power. A physician was manually bagging a patient whose ventilator had failed. Someone was crying in Bay 4. Madeline kept her voice level. Right now, I don't care what you think. I care about keeping these people alive. You're not even supposed to be here. I terminated your contract. Then you made a mistake. His face flushed. I made a mistake? You lied about who you are. You didn't disclose military service on your application. I disclosed everything required by law. Not enough, not... Marcus. Sharon Eng appeared beside them, her HR comm cracking around the edges. This isn't the time. She's a security risk. She's also the reason half these patients are still alive, Richard Santos said, appearing from Bay 2. His scrubs were covered in blood, his face exhausted. So maybe save the administrative review for later. Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but another alarm cut him off. This one was different. Not the mass casualty alert, not the power failure warning. This was the fire suppression system, except there was no fire. Water began pouring from the ceiling sprinklers. Not in one area, everywhere. The entire emergency department. Within seconds, the floor was soaked. Equipment sparked. Papers scattered. Someone screamed. Shut it off, Marcus shouted. Someone shut it off! But nobody knew how. The controls were electronic, and the electronics were compromised. Madeline grabbed the nearest water-sensitive equipment and moved it to higher ground. Other staff followed her lead, working on instinct because thinking took too long. Ashley Park was trying to shield a patient from the water, her scrubs already soaked through, mascara running down her face. This is insane! This is completely insane! Focus on your patient, Madeline told her. Everything else is noise. But it wasn't noise. It was tactical. Whoever had cut the power and triggered the sprinklers was hurting them, creating chaos, forcing them to react instead of think. Madeline looked around the department with different eyes. Not a nurse's eyes. The other eyes. The ones she'd tried to leave behind. The gunman had disappeared into the hospital. Ortiz's team was spread thin, chasing ghosts. The sprinklers were running, destroying equipment and creating confusion. The lights were on backup power. Someone was setting the stage for something bigger. She moved to the nearest computer terminal that was still functional, logged in, pulled up the hospital layout, studied the floor plan, emergency department, trauma wings, surgical suites, pediatrics, radiology, and below all of it, the basement level, utility tunnels, maintenance access, service corridors that connected to every wing in the building. That's how he disappeared so fast. Underground. She logged out, turned to find Richard. He was with a patient in Bay 3, working with 2 nurses to stabilize someone who was going downhill fast. Richard, he didn't look up. Kind of busy. The man who attacked us. He's using the service tunnels. Now he looked up. What? The basement. He's moving through the infrastructure. That's how he vanished. Okay, so tell the federal agents. They're already upstairs. By the time they regroup and sweep the tunnels, he'll be wherever he's planning to be. Richard's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm telling you what's happening. Madeline, but she was already moving. The stairwell access was near the loading dock, past the ambulance bay. She moved quickly, but not obviously, just another staff member navigating the chaos. Nobody stopped her. Nobody even noticed. The basement level was dim, even with emergency lighting. The sprinklers hadn't reached down here, but the air was thick with the smell of mildew and industrial cleaning supplies. Pipes ran along the ceiling. The walls were concrete block, painted institutional beige about 30 years ago and never updated. Madeline moved silently, staying close to the walls, her footsteps absorbed by the sound of machinery and ventilation systems. She'd done this before. Different continent, different decade, same principle. Find the threat before the threat finds you. The tunnel branched in 3 directions: left toward radiology, right toward the surgical wing, straight ahead toward the main hospital tower. She listened. Footsteps. Faint. Coming from the right. She followed. The surgical wing's basement access was a narrow corridor lined with supply crates and outdated equipment waiting for disposal. The footsteps were closer now, definitely ahead of her. She picked up a piece of metal pipe from a broken equipment cart. Not ideal, but better than nothing. The corridor opened into a wider maintenance area. Boilers, water heaters, electrical panels. And standing in front of one of the panels, working on something with a small toolkit, was the man from Bay 6. He sensed her before she could make a move. Turned. Smiled again. "Lieutenant Reeves," he said. "Right on time. Step away from the panel." "Or what? You'll hit me with a pipe?" He showed his hands. Empty. "I'm unarmed now. You already took my gun, remember?" "Then you won't mind coming upstairs to answer some questions." He laughed. Actually laughed. "You really don't know, do you?" "Know what?" "Why you're here. What you are to them." "I'm nobody. I left that life." "Nobody leaves that life, Lieutenant. You of all people should know that." He turned back to the electrical panel. "But you're right about one thing. I should step away from this panel." He did. Took 3 steps back, raised his hands in mock surrender. That's when Madeline saw what he'd been working on. The panel wasn't just electrical. It was the main junction for the hospital's backup generator system. And he'd wired something to it. Something small and digital with a countdown timer. 4 minutes, 37 seconds. "You can't defuse it," he said pleasantly. "It's coded. Try to disconnect it, and it triggers immediately. Wait for it to run down, and the backup power goes offline permanently. Either way, everyone upstairs dies." Madeline's grip tightened on the pipe. "What do you want?" "Not what. Who?" He tilted his head. "There's a patient upstairs, female. Came in with the transport victims. She's the one they want." "The witness." "Very good. They'll trade her for the code. Simple transaction." "No." "No?" He looked genuinely puzzled. "You'd let everyone in this hospital die for one person?" "I'd let you try to explain to federal agents why you thought that was a good negotiating position." He sighed. "I was hoping you'd be reasonable. I heard you were smart, practical, not one of those bleeding heart types who—" Madeline threw the pipe. Not at him. At the wall behind him, where she'd spotted a fire alarm pull station. The pipe hit it perfectly, triggering the alarm. Bells erupted throughout the basement. Emergency lights began strobing. The man lunged for her, but she was ready this time. She'd fought people like him before. People who thought training made them invincible. She proved them wrong then. She proved him wrong now. 3 moves. That's all it took. Redirect his momentum, sweep his legs, drive him into the concrete floor. He tried to get up. She didn't let him. "Code," she said. "Now." He spat blood. "You think you can stop this? We're everywhere. In the staff, in administration, in places you haven't even thought to look." "Code. You want it? Go ask your friend Marcus. Ask him who approved my transfer to Bay 6. Ask him why a hospital administrator has clearance codes for witness protection protocols." Madeline's blood went cold. The man saw her expression and smiled through broken teeth. "Starting to understand? This wasn't random, Lieutenant. They knew exactly where you'd be. They wanted you here." Footsteps pounded down the corridor. Ortiz and his team, weapons drawn. "Step away from him," Ortiz shouted. Madeline stood up, hands visible. He wired a bomb to the backup generators. 4 minutes. Ortiz's face went white. "Can you defuse it?" "Not without the code." The man on the ground laughed. And I'm not giving it to anyone except my contact upstairs. So we have a problem. Martinez knelt beside the electrical panel, examined the device. He's right. This is professional work. Try to force it, and it triggers. 3 minutes, 18 seconds. Ortiz looked at Madeline. Options? He says someone in hospital administration is working with them. Says Marcus Delacroix has witness protection clearances he shouldn't have. That's insane. Why would a hospital administrator? Money, the man on the ground said. Lots of it. Enough to retire somewhere nice and never think about budget reports again. Ortiz grabbed his radio. All units, I need Marcus Delacroix detained immediately. Consider him potentially hostile. The radio crackled. Copy that. Last seen on the 3rd floor heading toward the administrative offices. Follow him. Do not engage without backup. 2 minutes, 44 seconds. The man was still smiling. You're not going to make it. Even if you find him, he won't give up the code. He's committed now. No going back. Madeline looked at the device, looked at the tunnel leading back to the emergency department, calculated distances, timing, possibilities. Ortiz, she said, get everyone out of the building. That's not possible. We have patients on ventilators, people in surgery. Then get as many as you can. Now. He started to argue, saw her expression, and stopped. Grabbed his radio instead. All personnel, begin emergency evacuation. Prioritize critical patients. Move now. The man on the ground wasn't smiling anymore. You're bluffing. You won't let them die. Madeline knelt down, met his eyes. You came here expecting the old me, the one who followed orders, played by rules, calculated acceptable losses. She leaned closer. But that person died in places you've never even heard of. What's left? You don't want to find out. For the first time, she saw doubt in his face. 2 minutes, 6 seconds. Upstairs, alarms were blaring. The evacuation was chaos. Nurses trying to move ventilator patients, physicians making impossible triage decisions, staff running in every direction. Ashley Park was crying, trying to disconnect monitors from a patient who couldn't be moved. I can't. The ventilator won't run without power backup, and we can't. Richard Santos grabbed her shoulders. Focus. We move who we can. The rest what? Die? He didn't have an answer. Marcus appeared in his corridor, flanked by 2 of Ortiz's team members. His face was pale, sweating. What's going on? Why are we evacuating? Need you to answer some questions, sir, one of the agents said. Questions? Now? People are now. They escorted him toward the stairwell. Marcus kept looking back at the emergency department like he was seeing it for the first time, or the last time. In the basement, the timer hit 90 seconds. Madeline stood up. There's another way. What way? Ortiz demanded. She pointed at the device. He said it's coded to the main generator system. What if we isolate it? Martinez shook his head. Isolate how? The whole backup grid runs through this junction. The old steam tunnels. They run parallel to the modern electrical. When they updated the hospital in the 90s, they didn't remove the original infrastructure, just built around it. That system's been dead for 30 years. But the connections are still there. We bypass the junction entirely, reroute power through the old lines. That's... Martinez stopped, thought about it. That's actually possible, but we'd need to access the old switchboard, and I have no idea where... Sub-basement, east wing, behind the original boiler room. Ortiz stared at her. How do you know that? I read the building plans when I started working here. Everyone else memorized evacuation routes. I memorized infrastructure. 60 seconds. Go, Ortiz said. Martinez, go with her. I'll stay with our friend here. Madeline and Martinez ran. The sub-basement was darker, older, filled with equipment from when the hospital was first built. They found the old boiler room, forced open a rusted door that probably hadn't been touched in decades. Behind it was the original electrical switchboard, ancient, covered in dust, but possibly still functional. Martinez pulled out a flashlight, examined the connections. This is going to be rough. No guarantees. Better than certain death. 45 seconds. He started working, pulling cables, testing connections, cursing under his breath. Madeline held the flashlight, watching the seconds tick away on her watch. 30 seconds. Almost there. 20 seconds. Come on, come on. 10 seconds. Got it. He threw the final switch. The old board hummed to life, lights flickering across ancient gauges. 5 seconds. Nothing happened. Then, somewhere above them, machinery groaned back to life. The hospital's power stabilized. Emergency lights switched back to normal operation. 0 seconds. The bomb in the main junction triggered. But instead of taking out the backup generators, it exploded in isolation. A contained blast that destroyed the junction box but nothing else. No power loss. No casualties. Martinez slumped against the wall, breathing hard. That was too close. Madeline's hands were shaking. She hadn't noticed until now. They made their way back upstairs. The emergency department was still chaos, but it was controlled chaos now. Patients were being moved back from the evacuation staging areas. Equipment was being restored. Ortiz met them in the corridor. The device. Neutralized. And Marcus Delacroix? Taken into custody. He's already asking for a lawyer. He admit anything? He doesn't have to. We found encrypted communications on his personal tablet, account transactions, meeting logs with known criminal intermediaries. Ortiz's expression was grim. He's been selling witness information for at least 2 years. This wasn't his first betrayal, just his first time getting caught. Ashley Park appeared, her scrubs still wet from the sprinklers, her face exhausted. She looked at Madeline for a long moment. "I'm sorry," she said finally. "I didn't know who you were. I thought you were just..." "Just what?" Ashley shook her head. "Doesn't matter. I was wrong." She walked away. Richard found Madeline near Bay 1, checking on the critical patient who'd somehow survived everything. "You should rest." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. Nobody's fine." He sat down heavily on a supply cart. "Marcus Delacroix. I worked with him for 5 years. I had coffee with him. I thought I knew him. People surprise you. This kind of surprise I can live without." Madeline adjusted the patient's IV, noted his improving vitals. Against all odds, he was going to make it. "Why did you come back?" Richard asked. "After they terminated you. You could have just left." "I knew something was wrong." "How?" She was quiet for a moment. "Instinct. The kind you develop when your life depends on reading situations correctly." "That's not a hospital skill." "No, it's not." Somewhere in the building, Marcus Delacroix was being escorted to a federal holding facility. The investigation would expand, more arrests would follow. The hospital's reputation would take years to recover. But the patients were alive. That counted for something. Madeline was heading for the exit when Sharon Ng intercepted her. The HR director looked like she'd aged 10 years in the last few hours. "Miss Reeves, it's Lieutenant. Apparently we're being formal now." Sharon flinched. "Right. Lieutenant, I wanted to apologize. I should have looked more carefully at your background. Should have asked more questions before I agreed to terminate. You were following orders." "That's not an excuse." "No," Madeline said. "It's not." She kept walking. Outside, dawn was breaking over Ridgeline. The parking lot was filled with emergency vehicles, media trucks, federal agents coordinating the aftermath. Someone had set up a command post near the ambulance bay. Ortiz found her by her car. "Where are you going?" he asked. "Away from here." "We're going to need a statement, full debrief. You were involved in every aspect of..." "Then you know where to find me." He studied her face. "You saved a lot of lives tonight." "So did you." "I was doing my job. You weren't even supposed to be here." Madeline opened her car door. "Exactly." "Lieutenant?" His voice stopped her. "The man downstairs before we took him into custody. He said something, said this wasn't about the witness, said they wanted you here specifically. He was trying to get in my head." "Was he succeeding?" She didn't answer. Ortiz pulled out a card, handed it to her. "If you need anything, if you remember anything, if you feel like anyone's watching you." She took the card, didn't look at it. "One more thing," Ortiz said. "Your file. I pulled it after we secured the scene. There are sections that are redacted even at my clearance level. Operations you were involved in that officially never happened." So people with files like that don't just retire to civilian nursing. They're running from something, or towards something, or they're just tired, Madeline said quietly. "And they want to save lives instead of taking them." She got in her car. Ortiz stepped back, watching her drive away as the sun climbed higher over the mountains. Inside Ridgeline General Hospital, the cleaning had already begun. Blood mopped up, equipment replaced, damage assessed. But some things couldn't be cleaned away so easily. In the administrative wing, federal agents were boxing up Marcus Delacroix's files, searching for evidence of how deep the corruption went. They found personnel records, budget reports, schedules. And buried in his deleted emails, they found something that made the lead investigator go pale. A message sent 3 weeks earlier. Subject line, target confirmed in position. The message contained a photo. Madeline Reeves walking through the hospital corridor. Timestamp showed it was from her second day working at Ridgeline. The recipient's email was encrypted, untraceable, but the signature at the bottom wasn't. Phase 1 complete. Proceed to Phase 2. The investigator picked up his phone, dialed Ortiz's direct line. "We have a problem," he said. "Everything that happened tonight? It wasn't the operation. It was a test." Ortiz was already in his vehicle when the call came through. He listened for 10 seconds, his jaw tightening with each word, then cut the engine and got back out. "Lock down the perimeter," he said into his radio. "Nobody leaves. Nobody enters. I want every vehicle searched, every person accounted for." His team moved immediately, redirecting traffic, establishing checkpoints. The media trucks protested loudly. The morning shift nurses trying to come in for work looked confused and frightened. Ortiz didn't care. He dialed Madeline's number. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. He tried again, same result. "Find her car," he told Martinez. "Now." But Madeline was already 10 miles away, driving east on Highway 34, watching the sunrise paint the mountains in shades of copper and gold. Her hands were steady on the wheel. Her mind was quiet for the first time in hours. She didn't hear her phone ringing in the bag she'd left on the passenger seat. Behind her, 3 vehicles maintained careful distance. Different makes, different colors, rotating positions every few miles to avoid detection. Professional surveillance, the kind that costs serious money. Madeline didn't notice them yet. The highway cut through pine forests and rocky terrain, civilization falling away mile by mile. She'd rented a cabin near Blackstone Lake 3 months ago under a different name. Paid cash. Left no digital trail. It was supposed to be a place to disappear when the hospital work got too heavy, too loud, too much like the things she'd left behind. Now it felt like the only safe place left. Her phone buzzed again. She glanced at it this time, saw Ortiz's name, let it go to voicemail. Whatever he wanted could wait until she'd slept, showered, and stopped feeling like her skin was crawling with memories. 20 miles out, one of the surveillance vehicles broke off. Took an exit toward a gas station, but the driver didn't stop for fuel. Instead, he parked near the air pump and made a phone call. "Target is heading east on 34, destination, likely the Blackstone area based on trajectory." The voice on the other end was calm, professional. "Maintain visual. Do not engage until she's isolated." Understood. Back at Ridgeline General, the federal investigators had commandeered Marcus's office and turned it into a command center. Files covered every surface. Digital forensics were running on 3 laptops simultaneously. The lead investigator, a woman named Victoria Rains with 20 years in federal witness protection, was coordinating with agencies across 4 states. "How long has this been running?" she asked the tech specialist hunched over Marcus's computer. "At least 2 years. Maybe longer." He was careful, but not careful enough. Once we had the encryption key, everything opened up. Who else was involved? Still mapping the network. But so far we have at least 6 hospital employees who receive payments through shell companies. Some knew what they were doing. Others probably thought it was just a side consulting gig. Names. The tech pulled up a list. Victoria recognized 2 of them. Sharon Eng from HR, David Coslow from legal. Both in custody now, both demanding lawyers, both claiming they had no idea what they were really doing. Maybe true. Maybe not. "What about this Phase 2 reference?" Victoria asked. The tech pulled up the email thread. "That's where it gets weird. All the other communications are about witness locations, transport schedules, security protocols, standard corruption stuff. But Phase 2? That's different. There are references to a primary asset and final extraction. No names, just codes. Could the primary asset be the witness from last night? Doesn't fit. The timing's wrong. Phase 2 was initiated 3 weeks ago, long before last night's transport was even scheduled." Victoria stared at the screen, that familiar feeling of missing something important crawling up her spine. Then what were they extracting? Nobody had an answer. Outside the office, Ashley Park walked past with an empty coffee cup, her eyes red from crying or exhaustion or both. She'd given her statement to 3 different investigators, answered the same questions over and over, and still felt like she was drowning. Richard Santos found her near the vending machines. "You should go home," he said. "I can't. My shift doesn't end until—" "Your shift ended the moment federal agents took over the hospital. Go home, sleep, process." She shook her head. "I keep thinking about her. Madeline, all those times I—" Her voice cracked. "I was so sure she didn't belong here." "You weren't the only one. That doesn't make it better." Richard bought a coffee he didn't want just to have something to do with his hands. "You know what I keep thinking about? Marcus used to review every contract hire personally, claimed it was about maintaining standards. What if it wasn't about standards? What if he was looking for someone specific?" Ashley frowned. "You think he hired Madeline on purpose?" "I think maybe someone told him to, and maybe he didn't understand what he was really doing until it was too late to back out." The possibility hung in the air between them. Madeline reached the cabin just after 8 in the morning. It sat on a hillside overlooking the lake, surrounded by aspen trees that were just starting to turn gold. No neighbors within shouting distance. No cell signal unless you climbed to the ridge. Perfect isolation. She parked behind the cabin where the car couldn't be seen from the road, grabbed her bag, and went inside. The air smelled like pine and dust. Everything was exactly as she'd left it 2 weeks ago. Minimal furniture, no personal items, nothing that would tell a stranger who lived here or why. She dropped her bag by the door, walked to the window, and looked out at the lake. That's when she saw the first surveillance vehicle. It was parked on the far side of the lake, maybe half a mile away, partially hidden by trees. Dark sedan, tinted windows. Could have been a tourist. Could have been a fisherman scouting locations. But tourists didn't park in positions with clear sightlines to cabin driveways. Madeline's training kicked in immediately. She stepped away from the window without making it obvious, moved to a different angle, checked the other approaches to the property. Second vehicle, different color, positioned on the access road that led to the hiking trails. Third vehicle, pulled off on a maintenance road that technically wasn't legal to park on. 3 points of coverage, professional positioning. They'd been here before she arrived, which meant they'd known where she was going. Her phone buzzed again. This time she answered it. "Where are you?" Ortiz demanded. "Somewhere safe." "No, you're not. Listen to me very carefully. Last night wasn't the operation. It was a test. They were confirming something about you, and now I know. I've got 3 vehicles in surveillance positions around my location." Silence on the other end. Then, "Can you get out?" Madeline evaluated the terrain. 1 road in, 1 road out. The lake on one side, steep hillside on the other. Moving through the forest on foot was possible, but they'd have thermal imaging. She'd be tracked within minutes. "Not without them knowing," she said. "Then stay inside, lock everything down. We're 20 minutes out." "You won't make it in 20 minutes. Madeline, they're not here to surveil Ortiz. If they wanted surveillance, they'd be more subtle. This is a perimeter. They're waiting for something." "For what?" She was about to answer when she heard the helicopter. It came in low over the ridge, military-style approach, and set down in the clearing 50 yards from her cabin. Not a news helicopter, not a tourist charter. This was tactical equipment, and the 4 people who emerged were wearing civilian clothes but moving with military precision. Madeline ended the call. The lead man walked toward her cabin with the confidence of someone who knew she had nowhere to go. He was maybe 40, salt and pepper hair, wearing hiking gear that looked expensive and new. His team spread out, covering angles, securing the perimeter. He stopped 10 feet from her door. "Lieutenant Reeves?" he called out. "My name is James Keller. I work for a private security contractor called Meridian Solutions. I'd like to talk." Madeline stayed away from the windows. "About what?" "About why you're still alive." That got her attention. "You've been dark for 3 years," Keller continued. "No contact with your old unit, no consulting work. No use of your clearances. You've been very careful, very quiet. That was the point. And yet somehow you ended up working at the exact hospital where we needed someone with your specific skill set, on the exact night when a federal witness transport was scheduled to pass through. What are the odds?" I don't believe in coincidence. Neither do I. Keller gestured to his team. They lowered their weapons slightly, a show of non-aggression. So let's talk about what's really happening here. You have 30 seconds before I shoot you through the door. He smiled. With what? You haven't carried a weapon since you left the service. Verified that myself. He was right. She had nothing except a kitchen knife and whatever improvised weapons she could grab. Against 4 trained operators with actual firearms, that wasn't much. Clock's ticking, Madeline said. Fine. Short version. You were part of a classified extraction team, codenamed Shepherd Protocol. Your job was to retrieve high-value assets from hostile environments and keep them alive long enough for extraction. You were very good at it. Was. Past tense. Nothing's past tense in our world, Lieutenant. 3 years ago, you participated in an operation in Yemen. Target was an embedded CIA analyst who'd been compromised. You got him out, but the operation went sideways. 4 people died, including 2 members of your team. Madeline's hands tightened. She remembered Yemen, remembered the heat and the blood and the sound of the building collapsing while they ran. You were cleared of any wrongdoing, Keller continued, but you requested discharge anyway, left the service, disappeared into civilian nursing. I'm not going back. I'm not asking you to. I'm telling you that the people who died in Yemen, they worked for the same organization that's been tracking you for 3 years. They think you know something, saw something, and they want to make sure you never talk about it. I don't know anything. They don't believe that. One of Keller's team members spoke into a radio. Perimeter secure, no movement from local law enforcement yet. Keller looked back at the cabin. Last night at the hospital wasn't random. They knew you were there. They orchestrated the entire incident to see how you'd react under pressure, to confirm you still had the skills, the instincts. Why? Because if you still have them, you're a liability. If you've gone soft, you're irrelevant. They needed to know which one before they committed resources to eliminating you. And what's your interest in all this? Meridian Solutions represents several parties who have a vested interest in keeping you alive. Parties who worked with you in the field and believe you earned the right to walk away clean. Parties with names? Not ones I can share, but they're willing to offer protection, relocation, new identity, whatever you need to actually disappear this time. Madeline moved to a different window, checking angles. The helicopter was still running, rotors turning slowly. The surveillance vehicles hadn't moved. And if I say no, Keller's expression hardened, then you die. Maybe today, maybe tomorrow, but you die. Because the people tracking you don't quit, and they have resources you can't imagine. A vehicle appeared on the access road. Federal plates, Ortiz. Keller saw it too. Your friend the captain is about to complicate things. Make your choice now. I choose to stay alive long enough to understand what's really happening. Fair enough. He pulled out a phone, tapped something, and held it up so she could see the screen. It showed a photo. Recent. Taken inside Ridgeline General Hospital. It was Richard Santos, standing outside the emergency department talking to someone Madeline didn't recognize. The timestamp was from this morning, less than an hour ago. The people you saved last night, Keller said, the staff who doubted you, they're all potential leverage, all potential targets. You care about them, which makes them vulnerabilities. You threatening them? No, I'm telling you what the other side is thinking. They don't need to kill you directly. They just need to make your life impossible until you make a mistake. Ortiz's vehicle stopped 50 yards away. He got out slowly, hands visible, assessing the situation. 2 more federal vehicles pulled up behind him. Keller glanced back. Clock's running out, Lieutenant. You coming with us? Or are you taking your chances with federal protection? Before Madeline could answer, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered it. The voice on the other end was synthesized, distorted beyond recognition. Lieutenant Reeves, I hope you're enjoying your retirement. Who is this? Someone who was in Yemen. Someone who walked away from that building while your team members didn't. Funny how that worked out. Madeline's blood went cold. Say what you mean. I mean the operation failed because someone tipped off the hostiles. Someone who knew the extraction routes, the timing, the procedures. And now that person is working at a hospital in Colorado, plain civilian, thinking nobody remembers. I didn't say... We have evidence, communications, financial transactions. Everything we need to prove you sold out your own team. And tomorrow morning, that evidence goes to every major news outlet and federal agency in the country." The line went dead. Madeline stood frozen, the phone still at her ear. Keller was watching her. What was that? A frame job. For what? Treason. The word hung in the air like poison. Ortiz was walking toward the cabin now, flanked by 2 agents. Keller's team tensed, weapons coming up slightly. "Don't," Madeline said sharply. "Stand down." Keller looked at her. "You sure about that?" "I said stand down." He made a gesture. His team lowered their weapons but stayed alert. Ortiz reached the cabin. "Madeline, open the door." She did. He took one look at her face and knew something had changed. "What happened?" "They're saying I betrayed my team in Yemen, that I'm the reason people died. That's insane. They have evidence, or they say they do. Fabricated evidence. Maybe. But by the time anyone proves that, my face will be on every news channel in America. The nurse who sold out her team, the traitor who got soldiers killed." Keller stepped forward. "Which is why you need to disappear. Now. Before this becomes public." Ortiz put himself between Keller and Madeline. "She's not going anywhere with private contractors. She's definitely not staying in federal custody. Your agencies leak like sieves. She'll be dead in a week. That's not—" "Captain Ortiz." Madeline's voice cut through the argument. "When you pulled my file, what did you see?" He hesitated. "Classified operations, redacted sections, commendations I don't have clearance to read." "What about disciplinary actions?" "None. Your record was clean." "What about the Yemen operation?" "I don't have access to that level of detail." "Then find someone who does. Right now." Ortiz pulled out his phone, dialed a number he probably wasn't supposed to have. Waited through 3 rings. "This is Captain Ortiz, Federal Operations. I need immediate access to classified personnel files, authorization code." He recited a string of numbers and letters. Silence. Typing. Then, "File access denied. Security flag on the requested personnel record." Ortiz frowned. "What kind of flag?" "Level 5 restriction. Added this morning at 0600 hours. He looked at Madeline. "Someone locked down your file 2 hours ago." Keller smiled without humor. "Told you, they're thorough." Another phone rang. This time it was one of the surveillance vehicles down by the lake. Keller's radio crackled. "Movement on the south perimeter. Multiple vehicles inbound. Not law enforcement." Keller's expression shifted to something harder. "How many?" 4. No, 6. They're spreading out." "IDs?" "Negative. Unknown operators." Ortiz grabbed his radio. "All units, we have potential hostiles approaching from the south, defensive positions." Madeline moved to the window. She could see the vehicles now, black SUVs with tinted windows moving with purpose. They weren't trying to hide. They wanted to be seen. "They're not here for a conversation," she said quietly. The lead SUV stopped 100 yards out. The doors opened. Men emerged wearing tactical gear, carrying weapons that were definitely not legal for civilian use. Keller's team was already moving to defensive positions. Ortiz's agents were doing the same. Everyone was calculating angles, cover, fields of fire. Madeline counted 12 hostiles. Against Keller's 4, Ortiz's 3, and herself. Not great odds. "Last chance," Keller said. Come with us. We can get you out of here." "To where?" "Somewhere they won't find you." "No such place exists." "Then what's your plan? Shoot it out with 12 trained operators?" She looked at the tactical team positioning themselves below the cabin, looked at Ortiz and his agents, looked at Keller and his contractors. "I'm done running," she said, "and I'm done hiding." "That's brave and stupid." "Maybe. But I've been accused of treason by people who weren't there. Hunted by people who don't have the courage to show their faces, used as a test subject in someone's operation, and I'm tired of playing defense." One of the hostile operators pulled out a megaphone. "Madeline Reeves, you're surrounded. Surrender yourself and no one else gets hurt." Ortiz keyed his radio. "This is Captain Ortiz, Federal Authority. You are engaging in an illegal armed action against—" A shot rang out, not aimed at anyone, just a warning shot into the dirt. The megaphone crackled again. Next one won't miss. You have 60 seconds. Madeline looked at Ortiz. Can you hold them? Against 12, with 3 agents and 4 contractors? We can try, but... That's not what I asked. He met her eyes, saw something there that made him recalculate. What are you planning? Something they're not expecting. She turned to Keller. Your helicopter. Can it fly with damage? Depends on the damage. Bullet holes. Maybe some shrapnel. Where are you going with this? Madeline grabbed a piece of paper from her bag, scribbled an address, handed it to Ortiz. There's a storage unit in Denver, registered under the name Sarah Vance. This is the code. Inside is a lockbox. Everything I know about Yemen, about Shepherd Protocol, about the people who are hunting me. If something happens to me, make sure it gets to someone who can use it. Madeline, 50 seconds, the megaphone announced. She turned to Keller. You said your employers want to keep me alive. That's right. Then they're about to get their money's worth. She walked out the cabin door before anyone could stop her. The hostile operators tensed, weapons coming up. Madeline walked down the hillside with her hands visible, not surrendering but not threatening either, just moving with purpose. The lead operator lowered his megaphone. Stop right there. She didn't stop. I said stop. 20 feet away now, close enough to see faces, close enough to identify them. And that's when she recognized someone. 4th operator from the left, younger than the others, scar above his right eye. She'd seen him before, in Yemen, in that building, just before everything went wrong. You, she said. You were there. His expression flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. The lead operator stepped forward. On the ground, now. Your team wasn't there for the analyst, Madeline said, her voice carrying to everyone. You were there for the evidence, the proof that someone in the CIA was selling intelligence to local militias. And when we showed up for the extraction, you tried to bury it all, including us. You don't know what you're talking about. I know 4 people died because you detonated charges while we were still in the building. I know you let the analyst die to protect whoever you were working for. And I know you've spent 3 years blaming me for your failure. The younger operator's hand moved toward his weapon. The lead operator grabbed his arm. Stand down. She knows. I said stand down. Behind Madeline, she heard Keller's team taking positions. Heard Ortiz coordinating with his agents. Everyone waiting for the moment when this went from standoff to firefight. But Madeline wasn't done. You want to know why I walked away? She said. Because I realized the people I was working for cared more about covering up their mistakes than protecting their people. Because I watched good soldiers die for bad reasons. Because I was tired of being used. Touching speech, the lead operator said, doesn't change anything. You're right, it doesn't. But this does. She pulled out her phone, held it up so they could see the screen. I've been recording this conversation, every word, every admission, and it's uploading in real time to 3 different secure servers with instructions to release it publicly if I don't check in every 12 hours. The lead operator's expression changed. You're bluffing. Am I? You want to test that theory? Because in about 5 seconds, every word you've said is going to be backed up somewhere you can't reach it. And if anything happens to me, the whole world learns about Yemen, about Shepherd Protocol, about which agency was running operations that got their own people killed. Silence. The helicopter's rotors were still turning, their sound filling the space between words. The lead operator's radio crackled, a voice she couldn't hear clearly. His face went pale. He lowered his weapon. Stand down, he said to his team. We're leaving. But now. They retreated to their vehicles, moving in controlled formation but moving nonetheless. Within 90 seconds they were gone, dust settling on the access road where they'd been. Ortiz walked up beside Madeline. Were you really recording? She showed him her phone. The recording app was open, but it wasn't running. You lied. I made them think twice. That's enough. Keller approached, his expression somewhere between impressed and concerned. That was either brilliant or suicidal. Probably both. They'll be back, maybe not today, but let them come. Next time I won't be alone. She looked at Ortiz. That storage unit in Denver, it's real. Everything I said about the evidence is real. If they want to fight, they'll get one. Madeline taking on a covert intelligence operation is what they've been doing to me for 3 years. I'm just returning the favor. Her phone rang again. Different number. She almost didn't answer it, but something made her. Lieutenant Reeves. The voice was older, male, with the kind of authority that came from decades of command. My name is General Howard Breslin, retired. I commanded the Oversight Committee for Shepherd Protocol. I'm listening. I've been following the situation. I know what they're accusing you of, and I know it's false. Can you prove it? I can do better than that. I can testify. I have documentation showing you were cleared of any wrongdoing in Yemen. More than that, I have evidence showing who actually compromised that operation. Madeline's hand tightened on the phone. Who? Names I can't share over an open line, but people high enough that they thought they could bury the truth forever. People who are about to learn they were wrong. Why are you telling me this? Because you saved 23 lives in Yemen before everything went wrong. Because you carried 2 wounded teammates out of a collapsing building while under fire. Because you earned the right to walk away clean, and I'm tired of watching good people get destroyed by bad politics. She closed her eyes. What do you need from me? Nothing. Just stay alive long enough for me to make this right. The call ended. Madeline stood there in the morning light, surrounded by federal agents and private contractors, and the wreckage of a life she'd tried to leave behind. Ortiz touched her arm. What now? Now we go back to Ridgeline. You sure that's safe? Nowhere's safe. But if they want me to hide, I'm going to do the exact opposite. Keller shook his head. That's insane. Welcome to my life. The helicopter lifted off first, heading back toward wherever Meridian Solutions called home. The surveillance vehicles had already vanished. Ortiz's team began the drive back to Ridgeline, Madeline in the lead vehicle. As they descended from the mountains, her phone buzzed one more time. Text message. Unknown sender. Phase 3 initiated. See you soon. And attached to the message was a photo. It was taken inside Ridgeline General Hospital. Current timestamp, less than 5 minutes old. The photo showed the emergency department. And standing in the center of it, surrounded by patients and staff who had no idea what was coming, was someone Madeline recognized from the Yemen operation. Someone she'd thought died 3 years ago. The name came back to her in pieces, fragments of memories she'd buried deep. Captain Daniel Pritchard, Shepherd Protocol, Yemen Operation Commander. She'd watched him die, watched the building collapse, watched the dust settle over rubble that should have been his grave, except he wasn't dead. And he was inside Ridgeline General right now. Madeline held up the phone so Ortiz could see the photo. His face went pale. Get us there faster, she said. The driver hit the accelerator. The federal vehicle's engine roared as they took the mountain curves at speeds that made the tires scream. Behind them, 2 more vehicles struggled to keep pace. Ortiz was already on his radio. All units at Ridgeline, we have a confirmed hostile inside the facility. Repeat, hostile inside. Caucasian male, approximately 45 military bearing. Consider him armed and extremely dangerous. The response crackled back. Copy that. Initiating lockdown procedures now. No, Madeline said sharply. Don't lock down. Ortiz looked at her. What? If you lock down, he knows we're coming. He disappears into the crowd or takes hostages. Keep everything normal. Let him think he has time. That's a massive risk. Everything about this is a risk. He held her gaze for 3 seconds, then keyed the radio again. Belay that lockdown. Maintain normal operations. Plainclothes surveillance only. Do not engage without my direct order. They were 15 minutes out. Madeline's mind was already running scenarios. Pritchard was smart, trained, and clearly had resources she couldn't match. But he'd made one mistake. He'd told her he was there. Why would he send that photo? Ortiz asked, thinking the same thing. Why give up the element of surprise? Because this isn't about surprise. It's about control. Madeline stared at the phone. He wants me to know he can walk into a building full of people I worked with and do whatever he wants. Wants me rushing in, making mistakes, acting on emotion instead of training. Is it working? Probably. The highway straightened out. Buildings appeared in the distance, civilization creeping back in after miles of wilderness. Ortiz's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his expression darkened. That was Victoria Rains from the Federal Investigation Team. They just found something in Marcus Delacroix's deleted files. What? Communication logs showing he was in contact with someone using Pritchard's old military encryption keys, dating back 6 months. 6 months. Madeline felt something cold settle in her stomach. Pritchard recruited Marcus before I even started at Ridgeline. Looks that way, which means everything that happened, your hiring, your contract termination, last night's attack, it was all orchestrated. To what end? Don't know yet, but Rains is bringing Marcus in for another interview, this time without his lawyer present. They hit the city limits. Traffic thickened. Ortiz's driver navigated through it with practiced aggression, running lights when he could, using the siren when he couldn't. Madeline's phone buzzed. Another message. "Tick-tock, Lieutenant. How many people can you save this time?" She didn't respond. Didn't give him the satisfaction. Ridgeline General appeared ahead, its modern glass facade reflecting the mid-morning sun. From the outside, everything looked normal. Ambulances in the bay, staff coming and going, no indication that somewhere inside those walls, a dead man was walking. They parked in the emergency vehicle zone. Ortiz's team was already there, positioned in civilian clothes, trying to blend in with the hospital traffic. Martinez approached as they got out. "No visual on the target yet. We've got eyes on all major entrances in the emergency department. If he moves, we'll see him." "Unless he's already moved," Madeline said. She pulled up the photo again, studied it more carefully. The emergency department was visible in the background, but Pritchard was standing in a corridor. Which corridor? She zoomed in on the details, a sign partially visible in the upper left corner. Radiology. "He was near radiology when this was taken," she said. "That second floor, east wing." Ortiz dispatched 2 teams immediately. "Sweep that area, carefully, no panic." Madeline headed for the main entrance. Ortiz caught her arm. "Where are you going?" "Inside, where he expects me." "That's exactly why you shouldn't—" "He's here because of me. Whatever he's planning, I'm part of it, so I'm going to make sure I'm the only part that matters." She pulled away before he could argue and walked through the automatic doors into the hospital. The lobby was busy. Visitors signing in, staff moving between departments. Everything looked absurdly normal, like last night's chaos had never happened. But Madeline could see the cracks. Security personnel positioned too deliberately, nurses moving a little too quickly. The kind of tension that came from knowing something was wrong, but not knowing what. She took the stairs to the second floor, avoiding the elevators where she'd be trapped if something went wrong. The radiology department was at the end of a long corridor. She approached carefully, checking sight lines, noting exits. Ashley Park emerged from a patient room, saw Madeline, and froze. "You came back," Ashley said. "Where's radiology?" "Through those doors, but why—" "Stay away from that area. Pass the word quietly. No one goes near radiology unless it's an emergency." Ashley's eyes widened. "Is he here? The man from last night?" "Different man. Same problem." "Should I call security?" "Security's already here. Just keep people clear." Madeline pushed through the radiology doors. The waiting area was empty except for one elderly patient reading a magazine. The reception desk was unmanned. Strange for mid-morning. She moved deeper into the department. Imaging rooms on both sides. Equipment humming. The smell of antiseptic and machinery. A sound from the last room on the left. Movement. She approached slowly, her hand finding a metal clipboard from a nearby desk. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. The door was partially open. She could see someone inside, standing with their back to her, studying something on a computer screen. Not Pritchard, too small, wrong build. The person turned. It was one of the radiology techs, a young woman named Sarah Kim, who'd been friendly during Madeline's brief time at the hospital. "Oh, thank goodness," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "I thought you were—" She stopped. "Wait, what are you doing here? I thought you were fired. Where is everyone?" "There was a problem with the CT scanner. Dr. Brennan took the other techs to check it. I stayed to finish this upload, but then—" She gestured to the computer. "Someone locked me out of the system, changed all the passwords. I can't access anything." Madeline moved to the computer. The screen showed a login prompt with an error message. But below that, in small text, was something else. A message. "Enjoying the scavenger hunt, Lieutenant?" She grabbed the keyboard, tried several override commands she'd learned during her military service. Nothing worked. Then the screen changed, video feed, live, showing another part of the hospital, the pediatric wing, and in that feed, walking calmly past the nurse's station, was Pritchard. No, Madeline breathed. She ran. Behind her, Sarah called out in confusion, but Madeline was already gone, hitting the stairwell at full speed, taking the steps 3 at a time. Pediatrics was on the 4th floor. She burst through the stairwell door and nearly collided with a nurse carrying medications. "Where's the charge nurse?" Madeline demanded. The nurse pointed, too startled to question. "Break room." Madeline found her there. Linda Vasquez, 15-year veteran, currently drinking coffee and reviewing charts. "We need to evacuate this floor," Madeline said. "Now." Linda looked up, recognized her, frowned. "You don't work here anymore?" "There's a threat in this building. A man targeting pediatrics." "I haven't heard any alerts." "Because he's blocking them. Please. I know how this sounds, but you need to trust me." Something in Madeline's expression must have been convincing because Linda set down her coffee and stood up. "What kind of threat?" "Armed, trained, extremely dangerous." Linda grabbed her radio. "This is Charge Nurse Vasquez. I need security to pediatrics immediately. And someone get me building management." She looked at Madeline. "If you're wrong about this, I'm not." They moved into the corridor. 2 other nurses were there, looking confused. Linda started organizing them, calm and efficient, years of experience taking over. "We're doing a precautionary relocation," she told them. "Nothing to alarm the families. Just move everyone to the south wing, quickly but carefully." They started moving, parents asking questions, children being soothed, the organized chaos of a department in motion. Madeline scanned the area. 22 patient rooms, most occupied. 1 family in each room. Too many variables. Too many places for Pritchard to hide. She moved room to room, checking corners, looking for anything out of place. 3rd room on the left. A mother sitting beside a sleeping child. Everything normal. Except the mother's hands were shaking. And when she looked at Madeline, there was something in her eyes. Fear. But not fear of the situation. Fear of what would happen if she moved wrong. Madeline stepped fully into the room, letting the door close behind her. "Where is he?" she asked quietly. The woman's eyes darted to the bathroom. "He said if I called for help." "I know. It's okay. Keep your voice down." The bathroom door was closed. Madeline could see light underneath it. Movement. Someone waiting. She positioned herself between the woman and the door, then spoke clearly. "Pritchard, come out." Silence. Then, "Still giving orders, Lieutenant? Thought you left that life behind." The door opened. He stood there looking exactly like the photos Madeline had buried in her memory. Same sharp features, same calculating eyes. A little older, a little harder, but unmistakably alive. "You were supposed to be dead," she said. "So were you. Yemen didn't go the way anyone planned. You detonated those charges while we were still inside. I followed orders, just like you. My orders were to extract the asset and get out. Yours were to kill everyone who knew the truth." Pritchard smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "You always were too idealistic. Thought every mission had good guys and bad guys. But you learned different, didn't you? That's why you left." The mother was crying silently, holding her child's hand. Madeline didn't take her eyes off Pritchard. "Let them go," she said. "This is between us." "Everything is between us, Lieutenant. Has been since Yemen. You walked out of that building with information that could destroy careers, bring down entire operations. You think they were just going to let you retire peacefully? I never said anything, never filed reports, never talked. Doesn't matter. The possibility was enough. You were a loose end, and loose ends get tied up." He pulled a weapon from behind his back. Not a standard handgun, something smaller, purpose-built. "So here's how this plays," he continued. "You're going to come with me quietly. We're going to walk out of this hospital like old colleagues catching up, and then we're going to have a conversation about what you remember from Yemen. And if I refuse, then I shoot this child's mother in front of her. Then I move to the next room and do it again and again. Until you comply or until security brings me down. Either way, people die. Question is how many." The mother's breathing had gone shallow. The child stirred in the bed but didn't wake. Madeline calculated angles, distance, timing. She could maybe reach him before he fired. Maybe. But maybe wasn't good enough. Okay, she said. I'll come. Smart choice. But first, you need to hear something. I'm done listening to... General Breslin contacted me this morning. Pritchard's expression flickered, just for a second. He has documents, Madeline continued. Proof that you compromised the Yemen operation. Proof that you were selling intelligence to the same people we were sent to stop. And he's prepared to testify. Breslin's retired. No one cares what he... Federal investigators care. They've been building a case against you for 3 years. Everything you did, everyone you killed, all of it documented. You're lying. Am I? Then why did you come here? Why risk everything to get to me if you were confident the truth was buried? His grip on the weapon tightened. Doesn't change anything. You're still coming with me. Actually, I'm not. The door burst open. Ortiz and 3 agents, weapons drawn. Drop it! Ortiz shouted, but Pritchard was already moving, using Madeline as a shield, the weapon pressed against her ribs. Nobody moves, he said. Or the lieutenant dies right here. Everyone froze. The mother grabbed her child and ran, stumbling into the corridor. Nurses were evacuating the last few rooms, moving quickly, but not panicking. Pritchard backed toward the window, dragging Madeline with him. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to clear a path to the ground floor. You're going to provide a vehicle, and you're going to let me drive away. That's not happening, Ortiz said. Then she dies. Madeline felt the weapon pressing harder, felt Pritchard's breathing against her ear, felt the tension in his body. And she realized something. He wasn't calm, wasn't in control. He was desperate. You can't get out of here, she said quietly, just loud enough for him to hear. Even if they give you a vehicle, you know how this ends. You're blown. Your operation's compromised. Everyone you worked with is going to burn you to save themselves. Shut up. That's why you came for me. Not to clean up a loose end, because you need someone to blame. Someone to point at and say, she was the traitor, not me. But it's not going to work. His hand was shaking now. She could feel it. I said shut up. You were a good officer once. I remember that. Before Yemen. Before whatever they turned you into. They didn't turn me into anything. I just learned how the world really works. No. You learned how to justify being a coward. He shoved the weapon harder against her ribs. Another word. The window behind him shattered. Not from gunfire. From something else. A tactical team had scaled the outside of the building, positioned on window-washing scaffolding. They'd been there for the last 90 seconds, waiting for the right moment. The distraction was enough. Madeline drove her elbow back into Pritchard's solar plexus, twisted away from the weapon, and dropped. Ortiz's team fired. 3 shots. Center mass. Pritchard went down. The weapon clattered to the floor, blood spread across the tile. Medics rushed in. Ortiz kicked the weapon away, secured Pritchard's hands even though he wasn't moving anymore. Madeline stood up slowly, her ribs aching where the weapon had pressed. One of the agents helped her, but she waved them off. I'm fine. She wasn't fine. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was racing. But she was alive. Pritchard coughed, blood on his lips. He looked at Madeline with eyes that were already fading. Doesn't matter, he whispered. Still more coming. Who else? Madeline demanded. Who else is involved? But he was gone before he could answer. Ortiz stood up, holstered his weapon. Get a medical examiner in here and someone call Rains. Tell her we need that evidence package immediately. The next 3 hours were organized chaos. Federal investigators swarmed the hospital. Every employee was interviewed, every security camera reviewed, every piece of evidence cataloged. Marcus Delacroix, sitting in a federal holding cell, realized his situation had just gotten exponentially worse. His lawyer was already negotiating a plea deal. Marcus was talking, naming names, providing documentation he'd kept as insurance. The network unraveled fast. 6 hospital employees arrested, 3 federal agents suspended, 2 private contractors taken into custody. But it was the 7th name that stopped everyone. Deputy Director Carson Wells, CIA, veteran of 30 years, overseer of multiple classified programs including Shepherd Protocol. He was the one who'd ordered the Yemen operation compromised. He was the one who'd been selling intelligence. He was the one who'd spent 3 years hunting Madeline to cover his tracks. And by 4 that afternoon, his office was being raided by federal marshals. Madeline watched the news coverage from a hospital conference room that had been converted into a temporary command center. Ortiz sat beside her, both of them exhausted. "It's over," he said. "Is it?" "Wells is done. His people are rolling on him to save themselves. The evidence Breslin provided is airtight. You're cleared, completely." She nodded but didn't feel relief. "Not yet." "What about the hospital?" she asked. "Board's already in emergency session. They're going to make a statement tonight. Apology, investigation, the whole thing. And me?" Ortiz looked at her. "What about you? Do they want me to leave quietly? Pretend this never happened?" "Actually, they want to offer you a permanent position. Full benefits. Department head if you want it." Madeline laughed. It came out harsh. "A week ago they couldn't fire me fast enough. A week ago they didn't know who you were. They still don't." Richard Santos appeared in the doorway. His scrubs were fresh, his face tired. "Can I talk to her?" Ortiz stood. "I'll give you a minute." He left. Richard sat down in his chair. "Hell of a day," Richard said. "That's one way to put it. I owe you an apology. I knew something was off with Marcus, but I didn't push, didn't ask questions, just went along because it was easier. You're not responsible for his choices." "Maybe not, but I'm responsible for mine." He pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. "The board asked me to give you this. Official offer. But before you read it, I want you to know something." "What?" "This hospital needs you, not because of what you did, because of who you are, the way you work, the way you handle pressure. We need that. I need that." Madeline took the paper but didn't unfold it. "I'm not sure I can go back to normal nursing after everything that's happened." "Then don't. Help us build something better. A trauma program that actually works. Training that prepares people for the worst instead of hoping for the best. You've seen things we can't imagine. Use that." She unfolded the paper, read the offer. The salary was generous. The position was real. Director of Trauma Services. "Think about it," Richard said, standing. "But don't take too long. We've got patients who need you." He left. Madeline sat alone in the conference room, looking at the paper in her hands. Her phone buzzed. Text message from a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't open it. But something made her. "Lieutenant Reeves, this is General Breslin. The charges against you have been formally dismissed. Your record is cleared. Your service is officially recognized. You earned your peace. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." She stared at the message for a long time. Then Victoria Rains walked in carrying a tablet and looking grimmer than Madeline had ever seen her. "We have a problem," Victoria said. "What now?" "Wells didn't work alone. We're tracking his communications, and there's someone higher up the chain, someone with enough power to orchestrate all of this from a position we can't easily reach." "Who?" Victoria turned the tablet around. On the screen was a photo from a classified briefing, government officials, intelligence directors, and in the background, barely visible, someone Madeline recognized. Sharon Eng, not the HR director from Ridgeline General. Someone who looked exactly like her but wearing a different name badge, different credentials, standing in a CIA briefing room that Sharon shouldn't have had access to. "She's not just HR," Victoria said. "She's an embedded operative, has been for 5 years. And according to Wells's communications, she's the one who suggested hiring you in the first place." Madeline felt the floor drop out from under her. "Where is she now?" "We lost her. She left the hospital 3 hours ago and vanished. No credit card use, no phone signal, just gone." "Then she's running. Or she's positioning for whatever comes next." Madeline stood up. "We need to find her before—" Her phone rang. Unknown number again. She answered. Sharon Eng's voice came through, calm and professional as always. "Hello, Madeline. I imagine you have questions." "Where are you?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere you'll never find me. But that's not why I'm calling." "Then why?" "To tell you that everything you think you know about Yemen is wrong. Pritchard wasn't working for Wells. Wells wasn't working for the CIA. They were all working for someone else. Someone who's been watching you for much longer than 3 years." "Who?" "Someone who wants to meet you, face to face, tomorrow, noon, the old railway station on 7th Street. Come alone." "That's not happening." "Then the evidence General Breslin thinks he has? It disappears. The testimony he's prepared to give gets discredited, and you go back to being the traitor who got her team killed. Your choice." The line went dead. Madeline stared at the phone. Victoria was watching her. What did she say? She wants a meeting, tomorrow. Says there's someone above Wells who's been pulling all the strings. It's a trap, obviously. So you're not going. Madeline looked at the offer letter still in her hand, looked at the conference room that represented a normal life, looked at the choice in front of her. Then she crumpled the letter and threw it in the trash. Get me everything you have on that railway station, she said. Floor plans, access points, security cameras. I want to know every inch of that building. Madeline, this doesn't end until I know who's really behind this, and they just gave me an address. Victoria nodded slowly. I'll have the intel in 2 hours. She left. Madeline stood alone in the conference room, watching through the window as staff moved through the hospital below. Normal people doing normal work. The life she'd wanted. The life she'd apparently never be allowed to have. Her phone buzzed one more time, another message. Different number. A photo. It showed the old railway station. Empty. Abandoned. And spray-painted across one wall in large letters. Welcome home, Lieutenant. The old railway station on 7th Street had been abandoned for 15 years. Windows broken. Walls covered in graffiti. The kind of place the city forgot about while planning its shiny new developments. Perfect for a meeting nobody wanted witnessed. Madeline arrived at 11:45, 15 minutes early. Not to scout the location. She'd done that at 3 in the morning with Victoria's tactical team, mapping every entrance, every sightline, every place a shooter could hide. She was early because waiting was worse than acting. The station's main hall was cavernous, designed in an era when train travel meant something. High ceilings with ornate metalwork. Ticket windows that hadn't sold anything in over a decade. The floor was concrete now, the original marble long since stripped and sold. Her footsteps echoed as she walked to the center of the space, alone, like Sharon had demanded, except she wasn't alone. Ortiz and his team were positioned in 3 buildings surrounding the station. Thermal imaging, long-range audio, sniper coverage. If Sharon or whoever she was working for made a move, it would be their last. But Madeline needed answers first, needed to see who'd been pulling the strings. At precisely noon, a door on the far side of the hall opened. Sharon Ng walked through, still wearing her hospital credentials, still looking like the HR director who'd fired Madeline less than a week ago. Behind her came 2 other people. One was a man in an expensive suit, maybe 60, with the kind of polished confidence that came from never facing consequences. The other was a woman in tactical gear, weapon visible but not drawn. Sharon stopped 20 feet away. Thank you for coming, she said, like they were meeting for coffee. Cut it, Madeline said. Who are you really? My name actually is Sharon Ng. The credentials are real. The job at Ridgeline was real, just not my only job. CIA? Contractor, the kind they use when official channels are too complicated. I've been embedded in civilian positions for 8 years. Hospitals, universities, corporations, places where certain people might surface. People like me. People like you. The man in the suit stepped forward. Lieutenant Reeves, I'm Gerald Tannhauser, former Deputy Director of the National Clandestine Service. I oversaw Shepherd Protocol during your time in service. Madeline studied him. The name was familiar. She'd seen it on classified briefings, heard it mentioned in secure facilities. But she'd never met him. You retired 2 years ago, she said, officially. In reality, I transitioned to private sector work, consulting for organizations that need expertise in delicate operations. You mean you started selling secrets? His expression didn't change. I prefer to think of it as optimizing the use of institutional knowledge. Call it whatever helps you sleep. Why am I here? Tannhauser glanced at Sharon. She nodded slightly. Because, he said, you're the only loose end left from Yemen. Wells is in custody. Pritchard is dead. Marcus and his network are compromised. Everyone who knew what really happened has been neutralized, except you. So this is cleanup. This is an opportunity. He pulled a tablet from his jacket, held it up so she could see the screen. It showed a bank account. Offshore. 8 digits before the decimal point. That's yours, he said. In exchange for your silence, your permanent binding silence. Sign a non-disclosure agreement, take the money, and disappear. We'll even help you build a new identity, new life, new everything. Madeline looked at the number. It was more money than she'd earn in 20 years of nursing. And if I refuse, then Sharon releases the evidence we fabricated, the communications, the financial transactions, everything that proves you were the one who betrayed Shepherd Protocol. Your face will be on every news channel by tonight. Traitor, coward, the woman who got her team killed for money. Except General Breslin has real evidence that clears me. Tannhauser smiled. Had, past tense. General Breslin suffered a fatal heart attack this morning. Very tragic, very sudden, and all his documentation conveniently disappeared from his office before federal agents could secure it. The words hit like a punch. Madeline felt the floor tilt beneath her. You killed him. He had a pre-existing condition. These things happen. The woman in tactical gear shifted position slightly. Madeline noticed, calculated. She was fast, trained, probably had orders to shoot if Madeline tried anything. But Madeline wasn't thinking about shooting. She was thinking about General Breslin, a man who'd served his country for 40 years, who'd tried to do the right thing, who died because he'd stood up for someone who couldn't defend herself. You're wondering if we're bluffing, Tannhauser said. We're not. We have the resources, the connections, the capability to destroy you completely, or to make you wealthy beyond anything you've imagined. Your choice, but choose now. Madeline looked at Sharon. How do you live with yourself? By understanding that the world is complicated, that sometimes good people have to do questionable things to prevent worse outcomes. You learned that in Yemen. That's why you left. I left because I was tired of people like you deciding who lives and who dies based on what's convenient. And yet here you are, alone, powerless, facing a choice between survival and destruction. You think I'm alone? Sharon's expression flickered. We scanned for surveillance. There's no one. You scanned for electronics, federal teams, official presence. Madeline's voice was steady. You didn't scan for what I actually brought. The side door opened. Not the one Sharon had used, the one on the opposite side of the hall. Through it walked 12 people. No weapons, no tactical gear, just regular people in regular clothes. Richard Santos, Ashley Park, Linda Vasquez, other staff from Ridgeline General, people who'd doubted Madeline, people who'd learned better. Behind them came Victoria Rains and her investigation team. Then a woman in a dark suit who Madeline didn't recognize but whose credentials identified her as Deputy Attorney General. And behind all of them, cameras, 3 news crews, recording everything. Sharon's face went white. What did you... You wanted me alone, Madeline said. I came alone, but I never said I'd keep this private. Tannhauser was already backing toward the exit, but federal agents were there now, blocking it. Martinez and his team, weapons drawn. Gerald Tannhauser, Victoria Rains announced, her voice carrying across the hall. You're under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and violations of federal security statutes. Sharon Eng, same charges. The tactical woman went for her weapon, but she never cleared the holster. Martinez's team moved faster. She was on the ground in 3 seconds, hands secured. Sharon didn't run, just stood there, her professional mask crumbling. You don't understand, she said. We were protecting national security. Everything you did was to protect yourselves, Madeline said quietly. You compromised operations, killed your own people, destroyed lives, and you called it national security because it sounded better than greed. Tannhauser was shouting about lawyers and immunity in classified operations. Nobody was listening. The Deputy Attorney General approached Madeline. I've reviewed your file. The real one, not the version they fabricated. You're cleared, fully, and on behalf of the federal government, I apologize for what you've endured. Breslin was the one who deserved the apology. He died trying to clear my name. His death is under investigation. If it was murder, those responsible will face justice. Justice, Madeline repeated. The word felt hollow. But then she looked at Tannhauser being led away in handcuffs, looked at Sharon's destroyed expression, looked at the cameras recording every second. Maybe justice wasn't hollow after all. The next few hours were a blur of statements and depositions and legal procedures. Madeline sat in a federal building answering questions she'd hoped to never face again. But this time was different. This time, people were listening. By evening, the story had broken nationally. Former intelligence officials arrested. Conspiracy spanning multiple agencies. A nurse who'd been hunted for 3 years finally vindicated. The media wanted interviews. Madeline declined all of them. She drove back to Ridgeline General as the sun was setting. The parking lot was half empty, the day shift ending, the night shift beginning. She sat in her car for a long moment, looking at the building. Richard Santos found her there. He knocked on the window. She rolled it down. "Thought you might show up," he said. "Why?" "Because this is where it started. Makes sense it's where you'd come to figure out how it ends." He opened the passenger door, sat down without asking. They were quiet for a minute. "The board met this afternoon," Richard finally said. "Emergency session. They rescinded your termination, offered you full reinstatement plus back pay. Director of Trauma Services. The position's still open if you want it." "Do you want me to take it?" "What I want doesn't matter. Question is what you want." Madeline looked at the hospital. 3 days ago, I wanted normal, quiet shifts. No drama, just medicine. And now? Now I'm not sure normal exists for me anymore. Then don't chase normal. Chase useful. Richard shifted to face her. "You know what I learned watching you work? That trauma isn't just about injuries. It's about chaos. Systems breaking down. People making impossible choices under impossible pressure. And the difference between who lives and who dies is usually one person who refuses to panic. That's not unique to me. Unique to, maybe not, but it's rare, and we need it." He pulled out a folded paper, the same offer letter she'd thrown away. "I fished this out of the trash, read it again, really read it." She took it. The words were the same, but they felt different now. Director of Trauma Services. Build new protocols, train new teams, turn Ridgeline into a center of excellence for crisis medicine. Not just a job, a purpose. "Think about it," Richard said. "But this time, no pressure, no threats, no hidden agendas, just an offer from someone who respects what you can do." He got out of the car and walked back toward the hospital. Madeline sat there reading the letter until the words blurred. Her phone rang. "Ortiz, wanted you to hear it from me first," he said. "We found the evidence, the real evidence. Breslin had copies stored with his attorney. Everything about Yemen, everything about Tannhauser's operation. It's all documented. Will it stick?" "It'll bury them. Tannhauser's already negotiating a plea. Sharon's lawyer is trying to cut a deal. They're done." "And the people who died? My teammates in Yemen? Breslin? We're building murder cases. It'll take time, but they'll get their justice." "Yes." She closed her eyes. "Thank you. You did the hard part. I just filled out the paperwork." He hung up. Madeline got out of the car and walked into the hospital. The lobby was quiet. Evening visiting hours, families coming and going, staff changing shifts, normal hospital rhythms. She took the elevator to the 4th floor. Pediatrics. Linda Vasquez was at the nurses' station, reviewing charts. She looked up as Madeline approached. "Saw you on the news," Linda said. "Hell of a story. Wasn't trying to make news." "Never are." Linda set down her pen. "You here for the job or just visiting?" "Haven't decided yet." "Well, while you're deciding, room 417 could use someone who knows what they're doing. New admission, complicated case. Attending physician is overwhelmed." Madeline looked down the corridor, looked back at Linda. "I don't officially work here." "Officially, I don't care. You know medicine. I've got a patient who needs it. Everything else is paperwork." She walked to room 417. Inside was a teenage girl, maybe 16, hooked up to monitors that showed concerning vital signs. Her mother sat beside the bed, face tight with worry. The attending physician, young, probably fresh out of residency, was reviewing labs and looking stressed. Madeline scanned the monitors, read the chart, saw the problem immediately. "She's septic," she said. "Early stage but progressing. You need broad-spectrum antibiotics now, and you need to source control whatever's causing the infection." The physician looked at her. "Who are you?" "Someone who's seen this before. Check her appendix. The presentation's subtle, but I'm betting that's your source." He hesitated, then pulled up the imaging, studied it more carefully. "You're right. How did you—" "Experience. Order the antibiotics. Get surgery on standby. If you move now, she'll be fine." He moved. The mother looked at Madeline with tears in her eyes. "Is she going to be okay?" "She's going to be fine. The doctor knows what to do now." Thank you so much." Madeline nodded and left the room. Linda was waiting in the corridor. That took you 90 seconds, Linda said. It wasn't complicated. It was to him. That's the point. Linda crossed her arms. You know what this place needs? Someone who can teach that skill. That instinct. Not from a textbook, from someone who's been there. I'm not a teacher. You just taught that physician more in 90 seconds than he learned in 6 months of residency. So yeah, you are. Madeline started to respond, but her phone buzzed. Text message from Ashley Park. Heard you were in the building. ER needs you. Multiple trauma incoming. Please. She showed the message to Linda. Looks like you're needed downstairs too, Linda said. Question is whether you're going to keep pretending you don't belong here. Madeline took the stairs to the first floor. The emergency department was already mobilizing. 2 ambulances in the bay, 3 more minutes out. Richard was coordinating teams, but when he saw Madeline, something in his face relaxed. We're short-staffed tonight, he said. Could use someone who... Where do you need me? He smiled. Bay 1. Multiple trauma, just like last time. She moved without thinking, hands steady, mind clear. The chaos of the ED became background noise as she focused on what mattered. The patient came in critical. She stabilized him. Another arrived coding. She brought him back. A third crashed during transfer. She kept him alive. Around her, the team worked. Ashley was faster now, more confident. The residents were learning. The system was functioning. And at the center of it all, Madeline was doing what she'd been trained to do, what she was good at, what mattered. 3 hours later, the rush was over. All the patients were stable or transferred to surgery. The ED was cleaning up, restocking, preparing for whatever came next. Richard found her near the supply cabinet. You just worked a full shift without being employed here, he said. Send me a bill. I'd rather send you a contract. She looked at him. Really looked at him. Saw the exhaustion, the hope, the genuine respect. Why does this matter so much to you? She asked. Because I watched you save 7 lives tonight. Because you taught 3 residents more practical medicine in 1 shift than they'll learn in a month of rotations. Because this hospital needs to be better, and you can make that happen. He paused. And because you deserve to work somewhere that values what you bring instead of what you hide. Madeline pulled out the crumpled offer letter from her pocket. It was wrinkled, slightly torn, but still readable. If I do this, she said, I'm changing things. Protocols, training, how we handle crisis situations. Some people won't like it. Good. People who like the way we do things now aren't paying attention. And when I make mistakes, when I'm wrong, then you'll be wrong surrounded by people who trust you enough to say so. That's how teams work. She smoothed out the letter, looked at the words one more time, then she signed it. Richard took it, looked at her signature, and smiled. Welcome to Ridgeline General, Director Reeves. Don't make me regret this. Too late for that. You start tomorrow. The following week moved fast. Madeline set up her office, small, no windows, but hers. She started reviewing protocols, identifying gaps, planning changes. The resistance she expected never materialized. Instead, she found people hungry for better systems. Staff who'd been frustrated by inadequate training. Physicians tired of watching preventable mistakes. Ashley Park became her assistant. Turned out the young nurse who'd judged her so harshly had a gift for organization and a fierce commitment to getting things right. I'm going to make you work harder than you've ever worked, Madeline told her on day 1. Good, Ashley said. I've got 3 years of being wrong to make up for. The media attention faded after 2 weeks. Other stories took over the news cycle. Tannhauser and Sharon disappeared into the federal justice system, facing charges that would keep them in prison for decades. The CIA launched an internal investigation. Several high-ranking officials quietly retired. General Breslin's death was ruled a homicide. 2 suspects in custody. The case was solid. Madeline attended his memorial service. She didn't speak, just stood in the back and listened to people talk about a man who'd given everything to do what was right. On her way out, Breslin's daughter approached her. You're Lieutenant Reeves, she said. I'm sorry for your loss. Don't be sorry. My father died doing what he believed in. That's more than most people get. She handed Madeline an envelope. He wanted you to have this. Wrote it 2 days before he died. Inside was a handwritten letter, short, direct. Breslin's writing. Lieutenant Reeves, by the time you read this, I expect I'll be gone. They're not subtle, and I'm old. But I want you to know something. In 40 years of service, I met thousands of soldiers. Hundreds became friends. Dozens I'd have trusted with my life. You're one of maybe 5 I'd have trusted with my conscience. Whatever happens, whatever they try to make you believe, remember this. You earned your peace. Now go live it. HB. She read it 3 times standing in the parking lot. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. 2 months later, Ridgeline General's new trauma protocols were operational. Training sessions were mandatory. Simulation drills were weekly. The difference was measurable. Response times improved. Survival rates increased. Staff confidence went up. The hospital board issued a formal commendation. Local news did a feature story. National medical journals requested interviews about the program. Madeline declined most of them. Let Richard take the press. Let the staff take credit. She didn't need recognition. She needed to know the work mattered. One evening, she was reviewing case files in her office when someone knocked. Ortiz stepped in, slightly out of place in his federal suit among the medical charts. "Thought I'd check in," he said. "You drove 2 hours to check in?" "Had business in Denver. Figured I'd stop by." She smiled. "How's the case against Tannhauser?" "Airtight. Trial starts next month. He's looking at 25 to life." "Sharon?" "Took a deal. 15 years. Has to testify against everyone else involved. She's already given us 12 names. Will it be enough? To dismantle the network? Probably. To fix the system that allowed it? That'll take longer." He sat down across from her. "I also came to say something I should have said 2 months ago." "What's that?" "I'm sorry for not believing you sooner, for making you prove yourself before I took you seriously." "You didn't know me." "Doesn't excuse it. You deserved better." Madeline set down her pen. "Everyone doubted me. My contract supervisor, hospital administration, half the nursing staff. Even Richard had questions. Know what I learned from that?" "What?" "That proving yourself isn't something you do once. It's something you do every day. And the people worth working with are the ones who eventually see it." "You're more forgiving than I'd be." "No, I'm just tired of being angry." They talked for another hour about the case, about the hospital, about what came next. When he left, Madeline realized something had shifted. She wasn't running anymore, wasn't hiding, wasn't looking over her shoulder waiting for the next threat. She was building something. On a Friday evening, 3 months after everything changed, Madeline stood in the emergency department observing a new resident handle a multi-trauma case. The physician was nervous but competent, following the protocols Madeline had implemented, asking the right questions. Richard stood beside her. "He's good," Richard said. "He's learning. That's different. You're the one teaching him." "I'm just creating the structure. He's doing the work." Ashley approached with a clipboard. "Got your approval on the new training schedule. Starts next week." "Any pushback from staff?" "None. Everyone's on board." Madeline took the clipboard, reviewed the schedule, signed off. The system she was building wasn't perfect, but it was working. People were learning. Patients were surviving. That counted for something. "You ever miss it?" Richard asked when Ashley left. "The military work, the high-stakes operations?" "No." "Not even a little?" "The stakes here are just as high, just different. Every patient in this department is someone's family, someone's world. I don't need combat zones to feel like the work matters." He nodded slowly. "You've changed this place. You know that, right? We changed it. You, Linda, Ashley, everyone who is willing to do better." "Take the compliment, Madeline," she smiled. "Fine. We're doing good work." "Better? Better?" Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. "Lieutenant Reeves?" An unfamiliar voice. Young, nervous. "Who's this?" "My name is Captain Sarah Mitchell. I'm with the Army Medical Command. I've been reading about the trauma program you developed at Ridgeline General. I was wondering if you'd consider consulting on a project we're developing. Military field medicine. We're trying to improve survival rates in combat zones, and your protocols are exactly the kind of thing we need." Madeline looked at Richard. "At the emergency department. At the life she'd built." "I'm not going back into service," she said carefully. "I'm not asking you to. Just consulting, remote work. Maybe quarterly visits to training facilities. You'd be teaching medics the same skills you're teaching civilian staff, helping soldiers come home alive. She thought about Yemen, thought about the teammates she'd lost, thought about General Breslin. "Send me the details," she said. "I'll look at it." "Thank you, Lieutenant. This could save a lot of lives." "That's the idea." She hung up. Richard raised an eyebrow. "What was that?" "Someone asking me to teach military medics." "You going to do it?" "Maybe, if it doesn't interfere with the work here." "It won't. And you should. The skills you have shouldn't stay in one hospital. They should spread." "Since when are you okay with sharing your staff?" "Since I realized you were never just my staff. You're too good to be contained in one department." He smiled. "Besides, if military medics learn from you, maybe fewer soldiers die. That's worth a few days a month." Madeline nodded. The idea settled in her mind, taking shape. She could do this, both of this. Build trauma programs in civilian hospitals while teaching military medics. Use everything she'd learned in the worst places to make sure fewer people experienced those same places. Turn the nightmares into purpose. That evening, Madeline drove to the lake house. The cabin was quiet, untouched since the confrontation with Keller's team months ago. She'd thought about selling it, thought about leaving it behind. But tonight, she walked inside and realized it didn't feel like a hiding place anymore. It felt like somewhere she could breathe. She sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in shades of gold and purple. Her phone was off. The world was quiet. For the first time in years, she felt something close to peace. Not because the threats were gone, not because the past was erased, because she'd stopped running from it and started using it. The nurse who'd been dismissed, who'd been hunted, who'd been accused of treason and forced to prove her worth over and over. That nurse had won, not by being perfect, not by never making mistakes, not by fitting into someone else's idea of who she should be, by refusing to quit, by doing the work even when no one believed in her, by building something better from the wreckage of what others had destroyed. Madeline pulled out General Breslin's letter. Read it one more time in the fading light. "You earned your peace. Now go live it." She was trying. Every day. Building trauma programs, training staff, teaching residents, consulting with military commands, saving lives in all the ways that mattered. The phone in her pocket buzzed. She almost left it off. But she checked. Text message from Ashley. "Sorry to bother you on your day off, but we have a situation. Attending wants your advice on a complex case. Are you available?" Madeline looked at the sunset, looked at the lake, looked at the peaceful quiet she'd earned. Then she typed back, "Give me 20 minutes. Because peace wasn't about running away from the work. Peace was knowing the work mattered, knowing you mattered, knowing that the uniform might disappear, the titles might change, the setting might shift, but what you carried inside, what you built with your hands, what you gave to the people who needed it most, that stayed. That was real." Madeline Reeves stood up, walked inside, grabbed her keys. She had patients to see, residents to teach, lives to save, and she'd never been more ready. The woman they tried to throw out had become the foundation they built on. The nurse they doubted had become the director they trusted. The soldier who'd walked away from war had found a different kind of battle, one fought in hospital corridors instead of foreign deserts, one measured in survival rates instead of body counts. And she was winning, not because she was perfect, not because the system was fixed, not because all the threats were gone, but because she'd learned the most important lesson anyone could learn. You don't need anyone's permission to matter. You just need to show up, do the work, refuse to quit. Everything else is noise.